This week I've got Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which is the sequel to the 2014 film Maleficent from Disney, which was their kind of like, secret untold story version of Sleeping Beauty, where it's actually that Maleficent is a good person, not a bad person, but PR spin has changed her story and reputation to indicate otherwise, which sounds very convoluted, but whatever, that sounds about right for the quality of this. I thought I'd seen the 2014 version, but upon seeing the sequel, I'm like, oh, just kidding. I don't remember a single thing from it, aside from the fact that, okay, I remember, or I know, and this may just be from the trailers, that Maleficent, played by Angelina Jolie, is supposed to be a good character and not actually a bad one, or maybe a morally ambiguous one who secretly has a heart. She plays, a dark fae. And then Elle Fanning returns as Princess Aurora. Harry Dickinson plays Prince Philip, and he's just such a petite man. I know they're supposed to be young in this, but I'm like, oh, I just remember Prince Philip being like a drawn as when again, I'm referring to the Disney cartoon version of it, which there are plenty of stories of Sleeping Beauty, but since it's Disney doing this themselves, he just seems like such a petite little man, but okay, whatever, I guess princes come in all sizes. I shouldn't judge. So anyway, those two return. Michelle Pfeiffer plays Prince Philip's mother, and I was going to say, I think my favorite parts of this, they were terrible, but it was Angelina Jolie versus Michelle Pfeiffer as these two sort of mothers-in-law. So Aurora and Prince Philip get engaged in the first few minutes. Spoiler, sorry, but not really. And the kind of fighting between the moms was maybe one of the not funnier, but most relatable parts, I'll say. I think the whole cast returns. I can't remember at this point. Imelda Staunton, Juno Temple, and Lesley Manville come back as the godmothers in the super creepy, animated way. Oh my god, I hate the design of them. They have these giant heads and tiny bodies. They're a little bit Burton-esque. It's just so unappealing. So I think they went out of their way in the sequel to make all the forest creatures and fairies very extra cute. A lot of them basically reminded me of Groot, where they've done the kind of Groot-esque, big eyes. I mean, obviously, anything, you want to make something cute, give it big eyes, right? But they're tiny shaped bodies, big eyes. They talk in kind of cute gibberishy, meh, 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 meh. But oh my god, I hated the animation on the godmother fairies. The acting is not great in this one. Elle Fanning and Angelina Jolie are doing these weird British accents that they keep them consistent the whole time, but that doesn't make them good. I can't remember if they did this in the first movie. I'm assuming they did, and I just don't remember. But Angelina Jolie's wearing these crazy contacts, and basically her pupils never dilate, and her eyes are just wide open the entire time. I think we as humans look for those micro signals from each other of oh, you're scared, your pupils get small, oh, you're happy. It's all it's very human nature, and we need those cues to kind of relate extra to each other. And because she's wearing these freaky contacts, I think all the dark fairies are wearing them. You get none of that. And maybe it's a character choice or a design choice where it's oh, she's otherworldly, but it's just freaky because so much of the movie is just her just staring. At one point, I was again, going back to the Michelle Pfeiffer, Angelina Jolie thing, I was is this just Meet the Parents Fairy Edition? That's, I feel what they were going for in the middle of this movie. Just to get into the plot a tiny bit, and I guess tune out now if you don't want spoilers, but I don't think this will really impact you, otherwise I wouldn't talk about it. Michelle Pfeiffer has a thing against the fairies, and is basically a warmonger and wants to take over, and so there's all this subterfuge, and then there's a war between the fairies and the people that has been brewing for forever, and It's dumb. I know it's dumb, and I'm saying it out loud, and it's dumb. The newest characters are played by Skrein from, I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but from, you'll know most from Deadpool as the bad guy in the first one, and Chiwetel Ejiofor, who you'll know as he's in a bunch of stuff, but most recently the voice of Scar in Disney's Lion King. They're fine. One of them wants to go over and retaliate. One of them thinks peace is the way. Angelina Jolie's kind of caught in the middle. It's dumb. There's a whole war against them. And I was this is just ridiculous. These tactics make no sense. There were so many scenes that were straight up stolen from How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. I was just okay, is there anything original about this movie? The answer, not really. So, fairy wars happen, blah, blah, blah. Again, my biggest problems with this film: acting, not great. Plot, a little convoluted to a lot convoluted. I just don't know why the sequel happens. And basically, this movie stole from a bunch of other movies. And some of it stole well, and some of it didn't. And if you want to see a Frankenstein movie, to see a bunch of different kind of gags and scenes that you've seen before, but with Angelina Jolie and this cast, sure, go ahead and see this film. The thing I hated the most, and again, this is continuing to be a slight spoiler, but it's a Disney movie, so this should not come as a surprise to you. My frustration is that, like, at the end of the day, a cisgender white couple who are, like, basically they're royalty, so they're the 1% of the 1%. Their love is the most important story in the film. Well, no, it shouldn't be. This movie's called Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. And I get that Angelina Jolie's the mother figure to Elle Fanning's character, but, like, we spend so much time focusing on, like, you know, Philip and Aurora's story, and it's like, well, it's Maleficent's movie. Everything's wonderful at the end because they're gonna get married, or the goal is to get them married. And sure, there are like geopolitical consequences of that, but like that's so tired. And even when Disney was like, "Yes, we're gonna tell a different story in Maleficent because we're gonna tell the story about the bad character or like the villain," they still ended up telling it about. I'm tired of it. Like, you know, give us some diversity, give us some variety. Just stop it. Of course, it's going to make $1 billion, so it doesn't matter what I say right now. I think if you were a fan of the original Maleficent, you're going to like this because I think you know what to expect. I don't think the first one was that much better than this, so quality-wise, like, it's par for the course, I'm assuming. If you didn't see the first one, you're not going to see this one. Simple as that. If you need something to escape with your kids this weekend too, you don't have a ton of choices really going on right now. So you might have to see this. Or you could just stay home. You know, I think that's actually probably the answer, is stay home. For me, this was not my cup of tea. I didn't find it very good, but I do think if you're like already a Disney fan and already on board, it'll be fine. Like, and again, that's great. Like, it's great that the movie's for you. I just don't think it tried to push itself above and beyond anything what there was. And I will say, just to give it a little bit of a compliment at the end, I would love every outfit that Angelina Jolie wears in this. So good job, costume designer. But yeah, 2.3 out of 5 for Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. And then we've got another sequel this week. Another unasked for sequel. What a surprise. Actually, I feel like this one maybe was asked for, because I do remember, or I vaguely remember, seeing the original one of this, which is Zombieland. Now, admittedly, the first film came out 10 years ago, and so I don't remember it that vividly, but I definitely remember liking it at the time. And if I'm looking back at reviews, you know, it was pretty well reviewed. This one, not so much. The cast returns, which is kind of cool. It's Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, Abigail Breslin, and the premise is, you know, it's a zombie apocalypse, and some time has passed within this film. Actually, I think almost 10 years have passed within this film, but the interesting thing is, you know, it just the world ended to them in 2009, so they don't have a lot of the technology like we have now, and like some of the things that are just the norm for us. There are certainly jokes about that. I feel like they ended up trying a little bit too hard with those. This movie is ultimately predictable, much in the same way that Maleficent is predictable and not particularly original. Like, both of these are just kind of unoriginal. You know, there's a couple new cast members for this one: Rosario Dawson, Zoe Deutsch, Luke Wilson, Thomas Middleditch. The comedy just wasn't as fresh to me as it was back when it first came out. And again, I have not rewatched the first one since within like striking range of when it came out, so I maybe it does not hold up as well. You know, there's some fun like dynamic stuff with the characters as they are. I think Woody Harrelson probably pulls the most weight in this. He is certainly the most one-dimensional, or maybe two-dimensional of the characters, but it's not the most unique anymore, because they already did it. They already did the jokes. This one's just mostly about growing pains and what do you do, I guess, if you've been stuck with the same people for however long. And I think the probably quasi-funniest part of it was and it's in the trailers, which is the dumbest thing, but it's when Luke Wilson and Thomas Middleditch play kind of doppelganger-esque characters for Woody Harrelson and Jesse Eisenberg, and so watching them all like mimic each other, and part of me thinks like they actually wanted Owen Wilson, because he and Woody Harrelson look a little bit more alike. They got like the broken nose thing, and they talk more like each other in real life, but they ended up with Luke Wilson, but whatever. Yeah, like that part was enjoyable. There are enjoyable parts of this, but ultimately, again, it's one of those sequels, which, again, much like Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, I go, why do we need this? I feel like the entire film was designed around one particular gimmick, and that comes towards the end of the film, so I won't say what it is, but like, you know, they were like, what if we did this with this? And they're like, yeah, oh my god, we have to get the gang back together and make a film about it. You know, that doesn't make for the greatest, most compelling film. Ultimately, if you want like a gory zombie romp that has like some comedy in it, I guess you could go see this. I don't think if I had paid to see it, I would have been very happy with myself. You know, maybe just rewatch the original, honestly, might be my recommendation on this one. I'm going going to give it 2.8 out of 5. I got bored. It wasn't that funny. Like the zombie action like kind of gets repetitive and boring. Like there's all these jokes about like, oh, and maybe this was in the first one, I just don't remember, like, oh, like this way to kill a zombie. And again, I just feel like they came up with those parts first. So like, we'll fill in the plot later, which is not the way to do it. It's like a reverse mad-lib, right? Like, oh, here are the nouns and adjectives we're going to use. Fill in the story afterwards. No, nobody wants that for a reason. So 2.8 out of 5. Sorry, Zombieland. I hope we don't see a third. Like, let it die. Let it die.